Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Today I want to kind of take off from where the last segment and show you different instruments, but woodwinds, and how the fingering patterns are really quite a bit alike. And I'm going to focus on flutes and saxophones, maybe a little about the clarinets and the recorders. There are a lot of little instruments, like the tonet and the song flute and the flutophone, and they're all nice instruments. You can all play a certain amount of music with them, and their fingering patterns are very much the same as what the larger instruments, the saxophones, clarinets, and so forth are. So I want to go over some of this with you so you'll see the comparisons and how similar they are. And the reason I want to do this is that if you're going to be a musician, if you want to play music, it's a lot more than just knowing how to finger this note or how to finger that note or how to blow into the instrument and how to tongue. That's very critical. All of those things are critical, but you really need to know how they operate, how they work together. What range are you playing in? If you're in an orchestra, how does the range that you're playing compare with the ranges of other instruments? How does it all blend together? How does it get to be music to begin with? So I'm just kind of taking a journey with you and showing you the similarities between the fingerings of the basic woodwind instruments. So right here we have a flute. Now, that doesn't come in as clear as I'd like, but it's a smaller drawing anyway. But if you were to divide it in three parts, now remember I've shown you the recorders have a head joint, a body, and a foot joint. Well, the flute does too. The flute from here to here, the top of this place, is the head joint. The body is down here, and then when you get down here, you have the foot joint. So you can split it in those three different sections, just like you can the recorder. And the fingering patterns are very similar to the recorders, and I'll get a chance to show you that as we go on here. And the back of the instrument is used a lot for octaves and also some of the notes. Now here's another flute, but this is an open hold flute. If you look at the places where there are the little black dots, those are keys in which they open up. In other words, it's like a hole without a covering. All of these keys, they're like round, but there's no circle in the inside. Those are closed keys. Now, what's the advantage of having an open hold flute? The open hold flute is more expensive. If you are a professional person and you're on tour, or you want to join a group and go on tour, or be just professional, then sometimes it's handy to have one of these flutes that have the open holes, because the tone is a little bit different. Not much different, but just a little different. And there are some flutes, one of my students had one, in which it can be both. There's a little lever that you press, and all of the covers of these particular notes pop up. So it becomes open hold. And you press the lever again, and all of those close. All of those have covers on them, and they close, and it becomes a closed hole flute. Now, I've watched a lot of people in orchestras playing the flute, and I have not very often seen anyone play an open hold flute. But if you want it exactly perfect, as much as you can, and you want a little bit of quality of tone difference that a regular flute has, because a flute is pretty high pitched, then you might want to get and spend the money for an open tone flute. But most people don't. Most people get the closed hold, and I think the closed hold does fine. But it's just if you want to have something that's a little extra for professional work. Here again, this is the head joint, this is the body, and down here, this is the flute hole, this is the foot joint. Now, this is a piccolo, and I want to show you this is a lip plate right here. The flutes have them, and the piccolos have them, and it raises it's a little bit of a different shape for the mouthpiece where you actually blow across it. With a fife, the difference between a fife and a regular flute or a piccolo is the fact that it's a hole, a basic hole to blow across, but there's no lip plate there. And here you have the scale. This is one of my instruments, by the way. I took a photocopy of it. And the fingering pattern is very much alike because they're small. They're about the third of the size of the flutes, but the fingering patterns is basically the same. Now, I'm going to show you the flutophone. And you'll notice the flutophone, this is just my drawing of a flutophone, but it's B, A, G, F, E, D, and C, exactly like I showed you for the recorder. I really like the flutophone. They're a little limited in how many notes they can get. They can get an octave, which is pretty good, and maybe an extra note, but they play well, they're in pitch, they sound good, and they're kind of fun to play. They come white with red, with kind of like a red trim, or they come with black with kind of a white trim. Here's another photo of the flutophone. This is also one of mine. I took a photocopy of it. And it came out pretty good, but I just want you to see the fingering patterns, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. You'll notice this tone hole here is smaller than some of the others. And with the flutophone, as with the recorder, the size, they try to manage the size of the tone holes to accommodate the various size of your fingers. On some of the other instruments that I get from foreign countries, the Indian flutes and flutes from other countries in the Middle East, they don't have a variety of sizes, but on professional instruments they do. So this is a flutophone. And a lot of students start off playing with a flutophone. Whoops, I want to be able to get all the pages here. If I can get this to work. These are some of the song flutes, and I play them all, and I have them all. This would be your recorder right here. This would be the tonette. It has a little flare on the bottom. Whenever you have a little flare on the bottom, you have a bell. And you can see how how they're arranged, how the tone holes are arranged. This is a song flute. They're very similar, but the song flute can play more, and it has a little more intense sound, but it comes to like a point. It does not have a bell. Here's the flutophone. Here's just what I would call a melody flute. You can get them in practically any store. They have a mouthpiece, and they just have that straight stalk, and then you have the equal holes for your fingers. Usually nothing in the back, and then you have the penny whistles, which are like Irish flutes, a lot of them made in England, and this is a sassoto. They're like a penny whistle, and they play pretty much alike, but they play a lot of music. You can get 2 octaves easily on a sassoto and on a penny whistle, and they come in different sizes and different keys. I do have a sassoto, and I have a penny whistle that's about 3 feet long, each one of them, 2.5 to 3 feet long. And they play well, but there's lots of finger stretches between them because they are so long. And if you have problems with your hands, you probably wouldn't be able to play them. But for people who don't have that problem, they play very well. This is a sweet tone. It's also like a penny whistle made in England, but it's called a conical because it comes kind of to a point. And the mouthpiece is kind of obscured up here, but it is up there. And you have different size tone holes for the to accommodate the size of your fingers. Yeah, that's a better picture of it. Notice that this one here is smaller, and it comes to a point, and it's made in England. It's very nice. It comes in green and red. I have both of them. I try to collect. And this here, whoops, is a is a penny whistle. They come in different sizes and they come in different keys, and they're basically cylindrical. They're just like a piece here, a metal piece with finger holes and nothing in the back, no finger holes in the back, and with a mouthpiece which is similar to a Fipple mouthpiece. And they play beautifully. They play all kinds of music. I got to start working on them and playing them when I was in an orchestra, and I was with a friend of mine who was playing the flute. I think we were both playing flute. And she said, "Pat, have you ever played a penny whistle?" I didn't know what she was talking about. She says, "You got to get yourself one of these. They're so much fun to play." I ended up with several in different keys, and they are fun to play, and they're not hard to play. And you can play all kinds of good music with them, and I've seen them in professional orchestras. They're not to be sneered at. They are an instrument in their own right. Now, this is a saxophone, and this is my own sketch of it. And the reason that I decided to do that is to show you the fingering patterns. This would be B, A, G, F, E, D, and then this would be like the C down here. This is the neck piece. This would be the mouthpiece. This is an octave mechanism. There's a little key in the back, and that does a lot for the octaves. You open it up. This opens up when you press it, and then you can get various octaves with it, and that's the reason that's there. This is the bell down here. This would be the mouthpiece, the neck piece, the body, and this is the bell. The saxophones have really quite an extensive bell. They're quite large, even the alto saxophones. I have two small saxophones. The small ones, they are a soprano saxophone, a straight soprano sax, and a curved soprano sax. And what's the difference? The curved soprano sax looks just like a regular saxophone, but it's only about this big. But it plays like a regular saxophone. It is a fully engineered saxophone that you can play with. It's in the key of C. It's higher pitched. They're hard to play because they take a lot of air. I don't even think they're being made anymore, and I might bring mine. I've got a curved and a straight one. The straight ones they're making, but I don't think they're making the small. The curved ones are so cute. They're only about this long, but they're a fully developed saxophone. The straight ones you see in a lot of dance bands, and they're about yay long, but they play like a regular saxophone. It's easy to play them, easier to make them because they're straight. There's no neck piece, so there's no curves in them. They're just a straight instrument. But if this is a tenor saxophone, the reason I would know that is the curve in the neck piece tells me right away that that's a tenor. The mouthpiece and the neck piece, this come on the top is the octave mechanism. They all have them. And here's the body, and here's the bell. Now, if I want to compare in terms of fingerings, which is what I'm trying to do with this is the B, the A, the G, the F, E, D, and this little part here is the C. This is the bell of it. So, and there are a lot of little side keys. There are 3 side keys here. There are side keys going up and down, all up and down the instrument. And you can play many, many notes with it. There is a little key up here. If you press it, it lets you play a high F, and you don't have to play it. It's an easier way to play a high F. This is the way, but for the fingering patterns, just to compare, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Now, if I take my little recorder here, and this is the C, and this is the B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. It's exactly the same as with the saxophone. If I'm playing a C major scale on the recorder, I'm playing it the same way as I play it on the saxophone. The fingering is exactly the same. So let me review this. I did a little last time, but let me review this. Here's a C right here. And you have to flip and put the index finger down to get the B. But that's the way it is, and it's that way for the saxophone as well. And then you just add A, G, F, E, D, C. And the saxophone fingers it exactly the same way. In the C major scale, you don't get sharps, you don't get flats. It's just plain a C major scale. The fingering is exactly the same. I have a couple of other pictures here of the saxophone. They came from books that I've had, instruction books. And this is another one I picked up, but you see B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. Well, what's going on here? There are a lot of keys there, but you're not opening them up. They open up when you do the side keys. These keys open up on their own, but you don't use your hands to push them in. They are that way. They just operate according to what you do with your side keys. But of course, for these, you do have your fingers, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And it's just a very interesting instrument to play. Now you get to the baritone saxophones, the B-flat tenor saxophones. These are absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. I don't have those. I have about 6 or 7 saxophones. And, they're a nice instrument. Now, clarinet's one of my favorites. The way the fingering patterns are still going to be the same, but in terms of the division of what the instrument is, you have your mouthpiece. There's a little piece here, it's called a barrel. And then here's the upper body. It runs from here to here, and then you have the lower body from here to here, and this is the bell. And it has a little bit of a flare, and it's called a bell. The clarinet is harder to play than the saxophone, harder to play than the flute, but it's also a very beautiful instrument. And it has 2 different registers, the lower register and the upper register. The lower register has a completely different fingering pattern than the upper register does. And so if I press an octave key, it's not really an octave key in the back. You can't see it here, but the octave key in the back, you don't get an octave. So it's called a register key. You go from a lower register up to a higher register, and it's a different key. So example, if I press this register key, I don't get an octave. If I press the register key on or the octave key on a saxophone, then I get an octave up. What you get here is if you do it, you get an octave and plus another 5 notes. So therefore, you have to learn 2 sets of fingerings for the clarinet, one for the lower part of the instrument and one for the higher register of the instrument. And it's called, going from one to the other is called crossing the break, going from higher to lower, and a lot of students have trouble with it. And it takes a certain amount of skill to be able to go from the lower register to the upper register with a whole different fingering pattern. It is a fascinating instrument to learn. It's actually one of my favorites, but there are differences. But there's one register, the lower register, that's very similar to the saxophones. Here's just another view of it. The upper body from here to here, the lower body from here to here. Here is the bell, here is the barrel, and here is the mouthpiece. But a very interesting instrument. And as you know, you've got the alto that looks a lot like a saxophone, but it isn't. It's got a neck piece and a curve in it. And you've got the bass, which is very large. They're harder to play. They're very large instruments. And if we try to consider how the upper body and the lower body are, here's the upper body right here. And you can see there are a number of little keys around here, and these are the side keys. That's going to be the lower body, and that's going to be the upper body. And in the back of it, you have your register keys, so you can go from one octave to another. It's a little hard to play, but it's a nice instrument to play. Now, I want to show you something here. Here is a harmonica, and I brought in the harmonica book so that you can see it. Instruction book and how to play it and all of that. How to play the Hohner harmonica. And it's interesting to look at. It has a picture of the different keys and what you can play and how you can play it. I'm not really going through it. I don't play it. But I wanted you to bring in, I have a little miniature harmonica. And this is it. One of my smallest instruments, maybe the smallest. I have another one that's very close in terms of size, and it's a little mini ocarina, and it's only about 1.5 inches long. This is a Hohner harmonica. It plays a C, a chord in the key of C. It plays it perfectly, and it plays it in pitch. And if I were to breathe in, now, I wanted to mention something about the harmonica. Most of the time when you see people playing harmonica, they put it in their mouth and they do what I just did. But that's really not the best way to play a harmonica. And what most people don't realize is that the harmonica is a very nice instrument and can play some really beautiful music, but you've got to know how to do it. I've seen bands where a person might be playing drum or something like that, and they stick a harmonica in the mouth, and they think they're doing a great job. It's not really the best for the harmonica. The harmonica can do a lot more than that. I had a friend of mine who was a professional harmonica player, and I didn't realize it, and I'm just giving this information to you since I don't play harmonica. You may not have this information either, but harmonicas can come in different keys. Just like if you have a saxophone, you can get the E-flat alto, you can get the B-flat tenor, and so forth. They come in different keys. He had a whole case full of harmonicas, all in different keys, so that if we were playing as a band something in the key of B-flat, he could take out his B-flat harmonica. He would be in pitch with all of us. Most people have one harmonica and they just blow in and blow out and blow in and blow out. They're not even in the same key as the music is. They're just playing it and it's making the noise. The harmonica is just so much better than that. You can isolate the notes. You can play the notes individually. You can do harmonies, melodies, descant harmonies, and it can sound very good. It can sound with a perfect vibrato to whatever it is that you're playing, but you have to know how to do it right. He would teach me, he would talk to me about how you did it and how it was complicated, and went through some of the instruments for me so I could see the different keys, and he showed me his cases and all different harmonicas of different keys. So the harmonica has the capability of doing a whole lot more than most people even realize, and it has the capability of playing some really, really nice music. We don't think of it that way because most people don't play it that way. But I know a lot of people that just grab an instrument and play it as well as they know how to play it, and they're not doing it right either. So I think we need to kind of give the harmonica, that is a woodwind instrument after all, and it's a reeded instrument, we need to give it its due, and I need to let you realize how complicated and how good it can really be, and how many keys it can come in, and how a person who really knows how to play it can create some beautiful music on the harmonica. Of course, this little guy is basically just a novelty item, but it is perfect pitch, and it plays every note in the key of C is a major scale in the C major chord perfectly in perfect pitch, put out by Hohner, and it is a real working harmonica, but only those 4 notes of the key of C, of the chord of the key of C. So we're just about out of time. I'm going to close it here. We'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.